The 9th of October, Rabbi Furst, Pierke Avos, general thoughts.
Okay. Good morning. This is Rabbi Shlomo Furst here, Yeshiva Tzemach here in Shemaim. Erev Zoom. This is Erev Sukkos, Shana Toshin Gimel, and we're discussing the Ramchal Sefer Derech Hashem, his thoughts on the Sukkah and its mitzvahs of also lulav as well. So he says like this: Inyan Sukkah v'lulav, the topic of the Sukkah and also the mitzvah of the lulav, which also includes the esrog and the arobos and the hadassi, all taken together, is as follows. So Anani covered Hekev Kadosh Baruch Hu Es Yisrael. When we came out of Mitzrayim, Kadosh Baruch Hu surrounded the Jewish people with Anani covered. Okay, translated in English as the clouds of glory. Okay?
Right.
Now, you have to, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know too much about other people's faiths and beliefs, but I don't think, from what I know, from the limited knowledge I know, I don't think there's any other people that claims that there were widespread miracles done for the whole of the population and in this case it was existing for 40 years. Right? Existing for 40 years was a massive, tremendous miracle that existed for quite a long time, and it was extensive over the estimated over 2 million people. Right.
Right.
So I don't really see. I think that you find that in other faiths. You know, they make certain claims. Individuals this, individuals that, maybe a few groups, small groups, limited time, but they don't make such claims to these types of experiences. Right? So we have a special obligation. Number one, that it occurred to us. Hashem did this for us, for our ancestors, our forefathers, and it was something very unique in all the history of humanity. Nothing happened like that on such a wide scale, right? And on Sukkos, we have a chance to commemorate it and make it a actual simulation of what occurred in a small way, and that's what we discussed last time. That now, especially at the beginning of the winter season, right now we are the ones that are going out and building sukkahs, whereas in general, the normal way of life was that in the springtime people would go out and build huts. They would like to leave their homes and then enjoy the benefits of fresh and warm, sunny air, and so they would leave their homes that they spent the winters in, and would go into the huts, sukkahs, in the springtime. And we are commanded to do it specifically now in the fall, when, as you can see yourself, the last few days it's been a little bit more cloudy than usual, a little bit more windy than usual. Last night was not such a warm night. Not exactly the time to go spend time at the cabanas at the beach, right?
Right. Yeah, it's downright chilly outside.
Yeah, it was. We have to prepare a couple of extra blankets for the sukkah this evening, so you should be comfortable. It's a special mitzvah that you should prepare the sukkah in a way that you would live normally. Like just if you were going out to a camping trip, you would make sure you wouldn't be lacking anything that you would need to make the trip and the excursion as comfortable and as pleasant as possible, right? So likewise with the sukkah, you should not be stingy on anything that is necessary for making the sukkah as comfortable and enjoyable as possible. So the Anani covenant did that exact thing for us when we were in the midbar, being in the wilderness, and then we have psukim that we can refer to. We won't have time to do that now, but we have psukim that refer to that, and Rashi's that explain it, other Meforshim, Rishonim, Gemorahs, Chazal, explaining that and as you probably know on your own, the wilderness is not a friendly environment for humans and most other species as well. Lack of water, number one, lack of vegetation, lack of protection from the heat, and so only those animals which are very hardy and can sustain themselves in such extreme conditions are happy to live in such places. But people, especially, are not interested in living in such places. And here, Kadosh Baruch Hu, for the 40 years, took us out into the midbar and supplied all our needs. In addition to the Anani covenant, which protected us from the heat and the sun, the bear Miriam supplied us with water, and the man supplied us with food. So all our needs were actually taken care of very well, 100%, without any lack in the 40 years we went all together with Moshe Rabbeinu in the midbar. So this is a celebration, an observation, and a simulation of the Anani covenant, which Kadosh Baruch Hu as Yisrael, that he surrounded the Jews with when we came out of Mitzrayim. So the Ramchal further explains like this: Milvad to Elis Begashmias, that this is in addition to the physical benefits. Shaya l'sachik aleihem v'hagin ba'adam. That meaning the Anani covenant were physical. We derive physical benefits from the Anani covenant, meaning, as we just explained, they were protected from the elements, right? So that's a physical benefit which we gained from the Anani covenant. V'od haisa tolda gedola no lettuce mehem b'darki ruchnius. There is also a very great spin-off from what occurred by us being enveloped and protected by the Anani covenant, and not only in Gashmias, but also in Ruchnius. There was a spiritual benefit that we gained as well. What was that? Who? Kamo sha'al yidei ananim hey hahem hayun nitzoim Yisrael muvdalim levadam v'nosim min haaretz. That it was that these clouds, that they enveloped us. So it turned out that Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, were now distinct and set aside by themselves from those things in the world. If you take a look at the situation, first of all, we were in the midbar, right? And the midbar, there are not too many people. It's a place by definition of isolation, right? Number two, we were protected not only physically, but the fact that we were enveloped in a place of isolation with a protective covering around us, we were completely not only isolated, but also protected from any outside influences, right? It was a complete protection for all physical and also any spiritual foreign influences, and which is the complete opposite of what we are experiencing in Gullus. In Gullus, not only are obviously we are at the mercy of our host nations and peoples, and therefore, since we're at their mercies, many times we have to suffer from the influences that we get from the various different host nations that we find ourselves throughout our wanderings in Gullus. Right? And also in terms of Gashmis, it's also very difficult because the limited proprietorship that we have, because we're strangers in strange lands, so our proprietorships are limited, very much limited. So our proprietorships in as we being strangers in strange lands also is a physical disadvantage as well. So the situation of the Anani covet was completely
Rabbi,
yes.
I don't understand what you mean by proprietorships.
We throughout our wanderings in Golis, in exile, we were our dominion, our independence was severely limited, right? In basic and obviously ways. So it was very difficult, if impossible, for Jews to own any land, to even engage in businesses. We were completely. If you remember, the host nations and our foreign rulers created very difficult many times situations for us to be able to even make a basic living, right? Because they limited us so much in terms of what we could do in terms of basic, like, as I said, owning land, and properties, right? So we were limited very much so in how we could try and even make a living.
I see.
So that's what I meant by the proprietorship. We had very little independence, and we were not autonomous, and we were at the mercies of the host nations and their governments and their rulers. So those things were a physical detriment to us. In addition to that, which is even a greater threat, is the spiritual detriments that we had to face throughout our whole time in Golis, which was still in Golis. We're nowhere far from being out of Golis. The physical and the spiritual deficits which we experience are still there, and so that was completely to the opposite when we were in the Midbar with the Anani cover. We had protection not only from physical elements, but also from spiritual detrimental things as well. So he continues, nimshachas lehem mitzias haora ha'ashkanas osam levad, that it was resulting in a specific type of existence, which was because of the fact that they were dwelling by themselves. Dwelling by themselves for those 40 years was a specific type of existence which never existed again. Even when we were entering into Eretz Israel, right, there was still the influence of the nations that lived here. We had to fight against them, we had to conquer them, and then we had to rebuild. And it's many times we didn't conquer them entirely. So there was very difficult cross-culture contact, which was not the same as we were in the Midbar.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. Okay, so it continues. Nivdalim mikol ha'amim. We were separate from all other nations. And we were protected and isolated from all the things which draw a person, which are found in Olam Hazeh. And therefore we became elevated above all the other nations of the world. All the other nations of the world, right? No nations had this opportunity of being separated in a physical way from the physical demands that life in this world requires. All other nations, they had their whole existence was always connected to those things which were required for them to make their livelihood, sustain themselves, and maintain their incomes and their lifestyles, and all those things tie a person irrevocably to the physical existence. So no other nations had a experience like Klal Yisrael of 40 years when it was completely detached from any needs of physical existence and physical requirements. Right? That's something which is really, it's new to me. I didn't think about it in this way before. That the Anani covered the experience we had in the Midbar was a complete, absolute disconnection to all types of existence in this world. Meaning, we were really existing in a different type of existence than Olam Hazeh. And so that, then I'll bring the question about, well, it was for what purpose? So this is discussed in other places as well. The purpose is that this was a incubator, so to speak, for 40 years in the Midbar, surrounded by in the middle of the desert, and surrounded by the Inani cover. It was like an incubation period where which Klal Yisrael could generate the proper desires and maintain and acquire the various different tools necessary towards living a life of serving Hashem, even though you're in Olam Hazeh. To live in the physical world and serve Hashem fully, absolutely, is very difficult. And the 40 years in the Midbar were a living demonstration for everyone to gain from that and therefore serve Hashem in the proper way. And that was a part of the prerequisite of us going into Eretz Yisrael. So the Ramchal explains further. He says, Davar zeh nasa b'shayto Yisrael was given to this isolation was given and benefited Klal Yisrael for a specific time, right? V'agiam el hamala el yona roim lahem, that they should achieve a high level of spiritual lifestyle, which would allow them to connect with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, even after their experience in the Midbar would come to an end. He continues on. Nimshachas told Dosai, Zos the Kol Echad Misrael L'Dor Dorim, and this experience, right? This experience exists. It's been ingrained. This is a tremendous kiddush he's saying. This experience is ingrained in each and every Jew for each and every generation. Meaning, whatever we were experiencing in the Midbar, even though it was actually the people who were there alive that were experiencing it, but this elevation that took place because of the isolation that the Jewish people experienced when they were in the Midbar, that isolation for those 40 years, that created a potential in each and every Jew that they should also be able to disconnect from the requirements of life in Olam Hazeh. Now he continues. Amnam or Kadosha Mishkan. 1 second. He continues now. Amram or Kadusha Nimshach Lefonov is Barak, that there is a holy light. He calls it or Kadusha, or a holy light which emanates from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Umakri called Tzaddik Misrael. This light goes out and is surrounding called Tzaddik Misrael, every Tzaddik of the Jewish people. Umavdilo mikol shara ha'ar b'nei adam, and the Tzaddik becomes separated from rest of other people. V'nasu lamala mehem, and he becomes elevated above them. Umashimai alav al akolam, and he is placed above everybody. And this thing is renewed, right? It's renewed and regenerated. It's renewed and regenerated. Yes, thank you. Regenerated each time for the Jews when it becomes the celebration of Sukkos through dwelling in the Sukkah. Dwelling in the Sukkah.
So that's a point I'd like to delve into a little bit.
Yeah.
It's regenerated. So we sit in the sukkah and we say, oh, the skach is because of the Ananei HaKavod. And the Ananei HaKavod had this effect of protecting us and surrounding us and isolating us from the outside world. And that in conjunction with the man and the well, it gave us the characteristic of being completely taken care of.
Right.
All those things you said. And now you're saying, and this is all regenerated now because we're sitting here.
Right.
So that's like saying on Pesach, it should be as if you went out of Mitzrayim.
Yeah, that could be very similar. That could be a very similar analogy. I agree with you. Right.
So I always say, but it isn't. I didn't go out from Mitzrayim. It's hard for me to, I say it, I think it, I believe it, but it's hard for me to emotionally incorporate that and, say, I really went out. I'm really in the Ananei Kavod. I'm really regenerating this feeling of being isolated and protected and taken care of.
Right.
I mean, on the one hand, I am protected and taken care of. Hashem is very good to me. I sometimes wonder why I have so much good things happen to me since I'm not such a great guy that I should merit all of this, all of the benefits that I received.
Right. And I understand. I understand. Okay. Let me, I need to take a few minutes break. Okay. If you excuse me, I'll think about what I'm breaking. I'll I'll try and compose my thoughts to answer you. And just give me a few minutes to come back. Okay.
Okay. No problem. Take your time.
Thank you very much. Be right back. Thank you.
Saglar. Configure. Okay, this is not happening. Purchasing medicines. Closed. No, purchasing medicines. Purchase online. Medicine. Gluconin. Gonna be in big trouble here. Run out. What can I do? I'm out here. I'm not taking that medicine I should take. It'll probably come today. Lucky I'll get to it then. Uh, Mhm. Three. So I have chocolate. That's not good.
Okay, I'm back now.
Thank you for coming back.
Okay, thank you for being there. Okay, so let me explain it like this. It's not just by Sukkos, but it's actually that way with all of our Moedim, and even perhaps Shabbos included as well on a weekly basis. See, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created things that these certain events, for example, by Pesach, Yetzias Mitzrayim, and by Shavuos, giving you the Torah. And see, Sukkot is an anomaly because really Sukkot, as we discussed, really should be by Nisan, right? But it was transferred as
Sorry, excuse me a minute, Rabbi. I have an important call.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rabbi. I have a delivery of medicine that I have to receive, and he said he'll be here in 5 minutes.
Okay.
So it's very important that I get this medicine because I'm late on. I was supposed to take it today. So
Okay.
and I need it also for my trip. So can we take a break? Take another break for 5 minutes?
Yeah, fine. I'll be here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Okay, Rabbi, I'm back. Okay. It's not here, I'm sorry.
Today?
No, I haven't eaten anything today. Yesterday. Yesterday I had it in the kitchen.
After Shabbos?
Yes.
You got your medicine, Lou?
Okay, I got the medicine. Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay, fine. So, yeah, as I was saying, in terms of your, to clarify, when certain events happen to Klal Yisrael, they're like, for example, taking us out of Mitzrayim and getting the Torah. So they're not isolated events that happen once in history. There's a influence of those events that reoccurs at that time every year and every year, right? It's different than it's not simply a historical event, meaning the American Revolution took place in 1776 or whatever it was, and that was it. And on the 4th of July, people celebrate the fact that that happened once upon a time. But that's not exactly what we do when we celebrate and observe the mitzvahs of the Torah in terms of like our Moedim. For example, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkos, Hanukkah to that extent also, Purim to that extent as well, because the event is something which is eternal, and therefore the influences of the event also are embedded in time on those occasions at those dates. So the influence of the occasion is embedded in the time when it occurred. So therefore, the same things which occurred to the Jewish people at those original times reoccur to each individual Jew throughout each and every generation. It's obviously on a less of a extent, and it's obviously not as real as it was originally. But yet there's like a radiation which still is emitted on those dates at those times, and those radiations do affect people, and they're meant to affect people. And the greater effect that they have is based upon the connection that the person has to a Kodesh Baruch Hu and to the events which are occurring. For example, meaning Pesach. So as you said yourself, we're supposed to see ourselves as if we came out of Mitzrayim. So So yeah, that's a very nice thing to say, but it's certainly a very abstract thing to try and achieve, because we're seemingly not slaves, and we're seemingly not going out from slavery to freedom. Because if you're not a slave, you can't go out from slavery to freedom. But if you are a slave, you can. But we apparently are not. So again, the person who puts sufficient time and energy in understanding the slaveries which exist in our times, in his particular situation, wherever it may be, in all kinds of different places and times and situations that Jews live throughout the generations. So there are situations of where a person could be considered to be enslaved, and therefore there are corresponding freedoms which can be achieved. Right? So again, this is all dependent upon how serious and attached and prepared the person is to, so to speak, relive these things. So that's why the Ramchal mentions specifically here about a tzaddik, meaning a tzaddik is a person who's strongly connected to a Kadosh Baruch Hu in his daily life, in his daily behavior, in his way he thinks and behaves throughout the course of every day. So the tzaddik therefore is able to connect to these radiations which are existing throughout the calendar year, and he can therefore gain strength from these emanations and radiations which are occurring on a regular basis throughout the year. So that's what the Ramchal is indicating over here, that the sukkah and its influence is available to those who are able to achieve that type of connection, where they're sensitive to the so I'm just, in my expression, I'm just calling it the radiation, meaning like if you have a radio, and you from where you have FM and AM, you have shortwave, maybe they have other things now as well, right? I mean, now people talk about Wi-Fi. If you have Wi-Fi, you can connect to all the various different things flying around throughout the atmosphere, right? If you don't have Wi-Fi, you're completely oblivious to it, right?
Right.
So spiritually as well, meaning that the tzaddik is sensitive. He's geared himself to be sensitive to these radiations which are existent, and he's able to tune in, so to speak, and capture the meanings and the ramifications and the consequence of what these things are making themselves available to be had. So that's what the Ramchal is referring to over here.
So I'm familiar with what you're saying. And in the case of Pesach, I can even see that, it's springtime. It's a time of renewal. It's a time of starting again, a time of, the plants that were dormant, and now they're coming back up and they're sprouting.
Right.
And that's built into the time. That's the season.
Right.
So I can get a little bit of a grasp of the concept.
Mm-hmm.
So with the Ananei HaKavod, the Sukkos, there's something in the time that has to do with the concept of protection and isolation.
Right. The way the Ramchal is explaining it, that there's a influence of protection and allowing us to be, through isolation, being protected from outside influences.
Right. So we're kind of renewing that connection to Hashem, so to speak.
Right. It's sort of like getting a booster shot. We get a.
Didn't we learn a couple of days ago that Sukkot really should be in Nissan? And we moved
Right. That's
over
correct.
here.
That's correct. Correct. Right.
So how does that fit in?
Yeah, that's a point that needs to be clarified, since the time was really appropriately um, supposed to be made after Pesach in Nisan in the springtime, but it was transferred to the fall, the beginning of the winter. So you don't have that exact correspondent. But however, it could be maybe it's not the time of Sukkot is not so crucial, because after all, there was something which exists, which was an ongoing situation for over 40 years.
Right.
So it's really all encompassing. It's sort of not limited to a specific date and time.
Whereas Pesach is, because Pesach is the idea of the rebirth and the rededication, and
Right, and like the Shavuos was the giving of the Torah that took place on Zion Nissivan, and Shavuos to a certain extent you can understand this to a certain extent by Shavuos, because there's no the Torah does not give a specific date for Shavuos. It's 50 days after Pesach, but there's no specific date given for Shavuos. The reason for that is, one of the reasons explained is because the giving of the Torah is something which is like ongoing, and something which is a ongoing thing. So therefore, the Torah is giving a hint of that concept in the fact that it didn't specify a specific date. Was Rabbi Levitt supposed to come on now? I don't want to.
I'm not sure. He said he'd have to see, and he said he'd contact me, but I haven't heard from him. So, and I don't have an email from him.
So maybe let's discuss let's see
let's finish the thought.
So therefore, I'll just wrap up and say, therefore, so this concept, this protection, and this benefit of isolation is something which is there's an emanation of this strength and influence which a person can achieve when he's celebrating and observing Sukkos properly, as is with every other mitzvah, and especially the moeding which we do. So by doing it properly, we can achieve whatever spiritual inoculations that the Kadosh Baruch Hu has for us when we perform this mitzvah sukkah properly. If you want, we can continue Chol HaMoed. We have a few days. You should be in touch with me. It might be a little bit later time, because with the later davening time and with sukkah a little bit, might be closer to say maybe starting at maybe 10 o'clock or maybe even 10:30. I'm not sure, but we can be in touch about that. Okay, Lou?
Okay, yeah, I'd like that.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Very good.
if I do talk to Rabbi Levitt, I'll mention that to him and see if he's interested in something also. Okay, good. So maybe if you even want to try calling or send me an email, Motzi Yom Tov, we can try and be in touch to decide what time the time would be on the next day or two after that. All right, great. I'll send you an email that night. Okay, enjoy the Yom Tov, you and your family, and should we privilege you can fulfill all the mitzvahs properly, mitzvah Shem. Thank you, Rabbi. You and you too. And to the extent that we do them properly, it'll be your merit. In your merit. Bezat Hashem. Thank you very much. I appreciate your help. You're being with me all the time. Very good. I appreciate it. All right. Okay. Be well. Shalom. Bye.